Always fun to listen to John and Olivia, isn't it? My goodness. Good afternoon. How's everybody? Everyone's looking good. So glad you're here. So, we are here today for the specific task of listings Q&A. And so it's as broad a topic as that, and that is Q&A for or to me, Q&A for or to each other, so that we can run it more like a mastermind than a class, certainly. With the talent on this call and the experience level of on the listing side, I think that is a powerful path forward. To that, let me just say that this morning in our MREA book club, if you were part of that, that was a whole ton of fun, and we kind of literally just got up to the section on like why listings, right? The 3 L's, leads, listings, and leverage, and the whole conversation around the importance of listing at a high level. So, I'm pleased that we can spend an hour today just kind of walking and talking through, like, what are those questions that are out there around what's happening with the listing side? What are you experiencing? What are the sellers asking that you're not sure how to work around? Where are you finding new listings? Again, you name it. It's open and available for a topic today, as long as it is listings related. So with that, we can go with unmuting or raised hands and kind of start the whole conversation out with your questions. And John, looks like you were first.
Hey Rick, good afternoon. So my question is, so I want to get into doing open houses, and I was informed last week that when you're doing open houses for getting a buyer lead and a seller lead, is two totally different things. So I was wondering, how could I use open houses to get listings?
Yeah, great question. And I will open that up to anyone on the call. If anyone doing that right now, anyone working the open house angle for listings, I mean, it's almost crazy not to, right? Because they pop up. But anyone doing anything specific to drive potential sellers to open houses that they want to just mention?
Hi, Rick, it's Christine.
Hey.
So yeah, inviting all the neighbors to the open house.
Yeah, I think it starts being literally as simple as that. In
Right.
that, I like the what's that called? The 20-10-10 rule, right? 20 people to the left, 20 people to the right, 10 across the street, and 10 behind, right? There's invitations to 60 people who are living there right now who may well look to put their home on the market, who you might as well meet, and driving them to the open house is a great way to do that. The other thing I would say is once those the neighbors and or potential sellers are in the open house, how you kind of talk to them is different. If someone is there as a buyer, you may ask different questions about where they're at and what they need versus someone who is there as a potential seller. They may need different things. They may need neighborhood stats. They may need to understand list to sale ratio from their side instead of the buy side. They may need to understand what's happening with interest rates as it affects sellers in terms of the power of the buyer and availability of buyers and urgency of buyers. So it's just a slight shift in terms of the conversation you're having with a potential seller versus a potential buyer. And one of the best lead generation activities is to invite the neighbors, because they're the ones who oftentimes are the best candidates. What else? Anybody else doing anything to drive
Can I follow
sellers
up
to
really
open
quickly
houses?
on that
Yeah, of
question?
course.
So I think I heard on one mastermind called have like a separate time for neighbors to come in for the open house.
Yeah, you could do that. It allows you to kind of make them feel special, right? You do the neighbors only 15 minutes beforehand. So I'm having an open, you either an invite or that you walk around or dial through the neighbors, again, maybe the 2020 1010, and the conversation is, hey, hosting an open house at 123 Main Street. We are hosting a special neighbors only 15 minutes from 12:45 to 1 o'clock. If you'd like some kind of private time to preview the property and ask any questions about the value or anything like that. You could do a half hour, you could do 15 minutes. It just makes them feel special. So sometimes you get better response because people feel special. But yeah, that is another strategy.
Can I just add to John's question?
Of
John,
course.
if you give her a few days advance warning notice, you could probably ask Jen to get you the phone numbers for the neighbors so you can call them.
Yeah, neighborhood walk-arounds, mail-arounds, and call-arounds always increase open house traffic. And if it's the neighbors, again, that's really more of a it could be buyer lead gen as well. A lot of those people, if their neighbors, already have a house, so it may be actually a twofer. And then the other thing that I'll add to that question is, remember, 50% or more of the people who are potential buyers for a property that you're open housing own something else that they live in, right? So the conversation with buyers, don't forget to also have the other side of that conversation, because then that becomes the twofer. One of the first questions I would ask people who walked into an open house: what brought you here? How can I help? I'm curious, do you live in the neighborhood and do you own or rent? Because if they own and they're there, well, now we get to have both sides of that conversation.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
It's Tama. How are you?
Hey, good.
The thing we do, especially in communities that were developments and or condos, is I would door knock. A lot of now with people being skittish of that, you can get door hangers that will say, I have an open house on their day from 12 to 1, and you literally put it on their front doors. And I've been getting them at Staples. You can order them overnight. So, sometimes, if you go out and get another printer, it takes a week to get stuff. But Staples, I can design at night, press send in the morning, pick up the door hangers, and then I walk around and stick them on the doors.
Yeah, so I'm going to restate what Tama just said. I'm not sure if anybody else struggled with Tama. It kind of sounds like you're underwater. So I think what I heard was door knocking, use door hangers, use Staples to order them because you get them faster than perhaps other companies. And so you're kind of walking neighborhood, either condo complexes or whatnot, and leaving door hangers instead of actually knocking. I'm pretty sure that was the summary. Tama, if there was more, pop it in the chat, because we were just struggling to hear you. The other thing I would also say from a lead generation perspective is I'm not sure 2 years in that we get to wave the flag of, don't door knock because people don't want to see you face to face. I was just on a call where the president of Keller Williams Realty International, Mark King, said, yeah, I don't know if anybody notices, but this is not going away, because there were some questions around canceling family reunion. He's like, no, what we're doing is we're figuring out just how to live with whatever's going on. And so I would encourage everyone on this call to really begin doing the same. We have opportunities to grow businesses. That shouldn't exclude, if door knocking is your thing, that shouldn't exclude door knocking and having a conversation with people. Wear a mask, step back. We've been doing this long enough. We all know how to talk to one another and be safe. And if somebody really doesn't want to answer the door, they'll yell through the door. It says, I don't want to talk to you, go away. And you can say, okay, thanks, have a nice day, and go to the next door, right? And the door hangers are also a nice touch, especially if you're door knocking and no one's home, then you have that opportunity to leave the message. What else? listings Q&A. What's on your mind? Yes, Dana.
Yeah, this is a totally different kind of question. Since it's January, so the year in essence does not have any sort of track record yet for how is the market going. How would you, a prospective seller, ask your opinion on how the market is going? How would you answer that? Because we don't know quite yet how this year is going to proceed.
Well, so I think the only way you don't know how to answer that question with a seller is if you're working off of a calendar year, and the market doesn't understand what New Year's Eve and New Year's Day actually means. The market is always a look back of the last 60 to 90 days. And so how's the market? First of all, how's the market? The answer is always the same. It's great. Why do you ask? Right? That's the answer whenever anyone asks that question. And then you get to back up why it is what it is. And you're just using current data. Deb?
So I went to market analysis, market evaluation in 2-week segments about 4 months ago, because we need to keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on in the market. And guess what's going on in the market right now? The same thing that went on in the market 4 months ago. It has not changed. In one sentence, as fast as inventory comes on the market, it comes under contract. The numbers, and I can give you the most recent numbers: 152 countywide new listings the last 2 weeks in December, 159 in CTS, same period. You don't need to know much else.
Yeah, that's so we're continuing to see a strong, hyper crazy sellers market, and the statistics from the last number. I love the idea of getting even more micro on that, right? 2-week increments. What's the last 2 weeks? What's the last 2 weeks? What's the last 2 weeks?
And then every town, same thing. And virtually every town follows the same pattern. There are a couple of exceptions. The other question is, do you want to gamble that it's going to continue for another 6 months?
Yeah, because that is a gamble.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just so everyone on this call knows my personal opinion is that the answer to that question is yes, it will. And yet it could change on a dime, right? So, be careful about making promises. And I'm saying that to you, be really cautious about making predictions to your sellers, because all they hear is the prediction. They don't hear the nobody knows, however, it could well look like this.
The conversation on Business Builders today was exactly this conversation. And the point is, when the market shifts, it doesn't shift like this, it shifts often. And I can give you the most recent 2 examples of that. When the market went from this to this, 2006, 2007, and when the market went from this to this, 2020. And the point that somebody made on that call, it was brilliant, was neither shift had anything that predicted it. It just happened. And we didn't have anything to do with it. So keep that question in their minds. We don't know what's coming down the road. How badly do you want to sell?
Yeah, and I would so hopefully that helps, Dana. I think the one of the biggest points to make is, do remember that the market is always moving, and so we're always just looking 2 weeks back, 30 days back, 60 days back, whatever that time frame is. It's not necessarily a year to date. You can the other thing to look at is just from a pacing perspective, is you can look month over month. Like what was last December, what was December of 2020 versus December 2021? What was the first 2 weeks of January last year versus this year? Just for to kind of gauge, are we in the same spot from the previous year? But that is less relevant than what's actually happening in the last 2 to 4 to 6 or 8 weeks. John.
I just want to second what Debbie was saying. I attended her class way back when she taught how to do the 2-week increments. And I've been kind of doing that, although I don't have as many cities as she does. I picked a few out because I'm in Stanford, and I picked a couple cities nearby. And that so I've been doing that as well, and that's been able to help me kind of understand and keep up with what's been going on. But my question is, how do we go about starting a farm, like to do like mailers and stuff like that?
Yeah, so starting a farm, relatively simple. You pick 200 to 400 properties. If it were me today, I would ask Debbie for, what's his name, Deb? David Waddle. Is he still in business?
He is, and there are 1,000 other easy ways to do this as well. Prism works. Prism
Oh,
is
yeah.
awesome. It's
Yeah, Prism.
fabulous. Yeah.
So here's my point. My point is leverage it out. Whether you're hiring a company like David Waddle's company, or using Prism, using Pieces in Command, right? Leverage out. Pick the area, and you can do it based on what's attractive to you. You can pick a farm based on just geography. You can pick a farm based on condo complexes, or inside of a gated whatever, like different neighborhoods. You can pick it based on more demographic information. Are there you can farm just seniors, and it would be kind of random addresses all in and around town. I personally think 200 to 400 is the sweet spot in that. And here's my biggest thought. Anything you send, make sure it's real estate related. Don't send recipes or whatever's real estate related, and I believe pattern of success for your business. Show people that you're doing the do and that you're creating success, and tidbits and tips about that are strategically real estate related. Do it at least every month, and be willing to either walk the farm and or call the farm, or don't waste your money.
And then a quick follow-up is what's Prism?
Prism is our marketing partner company. Check in with who has info on John. The best thing to do is to go on the YouTube channel.
Mhm.
There are recorded videos on signing up for Prism, on getting yourself set with Prism, and how to use the Prism tool. So check that out on YouTube. Debbie.
I was just going to say something like that. Yeah.
Oh.
And the only thing I would add, John, is do a farm that means something to you, whatever that is, and allocate funds to keep it going minimally for 12 months. It doesn't happen in 1 month or 2 months, typically, although it can, that you get some business from it. It's a long-term project. So make sure you don't overreach and then only touch it once or twice. You have to touch it over time.
Well, in this morning's book club, one of the things that we talked about was page 84 or 6, I think, about one of the ways to think strategically and competitively, right? And what I did with my farm was I strategically and competitively looked around and said, okay, where can I stand out, right? In 2 or so years ago, the northern, I lived and worked in Ridgefield, the northern part, 22 years ago, northern Ridgefield, people thought you needed a passport to get there. And so I thought, all right, well, people, most agents who are currently around aren't going to be doing that. And so I chose some neighborhoods up there, and then I chose the 3 busiest streets in town, because I wanted my signs when I converted, decided I would be successful, right? And so when I converted those people into listings, I wanted my signs on streets where people would see it, because the whole point was I wanted my signs to be seen. And I wanted houses that if I hosted open houses, there would be lots of traffic driving past it, so I could pull more people. So that to me was a strategic choice about where I farmed. Instead of the glitzy, fancy $1 million pluses that everyone was farming, or the 2 or 3 neighborhoods that everyone wants to live in, I went the exact opposite route. I went with busy roads and neighborhoods that were more of a stretch for people to be attracted to. Because guess what? Those houses sold too, and there was less competition to obtain them.
So to follow up on that, how do I know if a certain area isn't already kind of being farmed by another agent?
You don't. Just do it anyway. Or, I mean, there was one time I sold my brother a house in one part of Norwalk many years ago. And there was this agent, I forget her name, I think she's still in the business, who was kind of the dominant player there. And so I sold him a house, and I'm like, all right, well, if I'm going to have a relative who's going to live here, I'm going to kick her off the top of the pedestal. And so I added all those streets to a monthly farm, to knowing full well that she was already doing that, because my brother was getting her stuff. And I decided I just wanted to go head to head and make a dent there. And so again, it depends on what you're looking for. Enough agents don't farm that I wouldn't worry about it. There's not enough people doing enough things that you won't be noticed if in fact you are consistent with a message and do it consistently. What else? Listing Q&A. What's on your mind?
Hey, Rick,
Yes, Karen.
I just wanted to add that it is less expensive. It was less expensive a month ago to get the same mortgage that you're going to get today. I mean, rates did go up over the last couple of weeks, about 0.5 point. So the projection, and like you said, nobody knows for sure what's going to happen, but it does look like rates are going to continue to rise. So it's way cheaper to buy today or to sell today to a first-time buyer today on an affordability standpoint. If that helps you get a listing or a buyer. I mean, it's definitely cheaper for someone to obtain a loan today than it will be maybe a year from now. At least that's what they are saying, the economists and, experts in the world.
So may I add this to that? You just gave us content that we need to deliver today to anybody who is in our prospective seller nurture, listing nurture group. And how can we do that? Just do it. Make a little video, tiny little video, and get it out to whether it's 3 people or 300 people. Deliver it. That's the most important thing. That's huge content. Huge content. Don't wait for more.
And here's the spin on that for your sellers, right? Hey, it's Rick Scott here. Just wanting to give you a quick update. As many of you know, interest rates have ticked up a little bit in the last couple of weeks, and the potential for them to tick up again over the course of the coming months is certainly there. As a potential seller, that means every time the interest rates tick up, buyers have less money to pay you. So let's jump in now, get that house on the market while buyers still have as much money as they have to put in your pocket. Like, you have to spin it so that sellers understand that interest rates and homes being more expensive to sellers, it does affect them, because to buyers, right, it's not their problem as a seller. It is their problem because now buyers have less funds to give to the sellers. Sellers put more in their pocket when interest rates are lower because buyers can afford more and are willing to throw more money, right? So you have to always make that conversion in your scripting to make sure that the information that Karen just put on the table is heard through the lens of a seller Not that the seller says, well, who cares? It's a buyer. I'm gonna ask for what I'm gonna ask for anyway. No, no, no. You can ask, but if it costs them more, there are fewer people who are now willing to pay your ask. Karen,
Keep it light, keep it short, and get in front of them, whether it's on the phone or personally.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes,
You know, talked to a bunch of sellers and it's hard to find comps because the inventory has been so low. So they kind of started making up their own numbers. And where's my proof? You know, I go back a year and they say, well, yes, but it has shifted. Everybody sells for more now. So we have to be very careful. But the last one, I really could only find 2 comps and they weren't exactly even in that neighborhood. So how do you, you know?
yeah, so I personally, I would worry less about that. I would, if there's only 2 and those are the 2 best ones, well, then those are the 2 that you utilize to make the point. I think that neighborhood is, unless it's something like, unless there's really a massive difference in one neighborhood to another, you know, like, you know, Rowayton versus another part of Norwalk, right? Unless there's really a delineation of value between the neighborhoods, if the comps aren't in the neighborhood and they're still in the same town, I think you go with it. There's one of those scripts out there that says, you know, the good news, Mr. and Mrs. Oh, I think Debbie just put it in the chat. The good news, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is you simply can't make a mistake by undervaluing the property because the market will just correct that. You can still make a mistake by overvaluing the property. And so utilizing these tools, because there are still comps out there. If there's not 3 and there's 2, that's okay. But there are definitely comps out there. And if for some reason somebody is really, really pushing back, and tell them to get an independent appraisal. Tell them to pay for it. Put their money where their mouth is. If in fact the property should be selling for $100,000 more than what the comps say, well, let's have an independent appraiser confirm that before you go and destroy what the buying public thinks of your property.
Okay.
That's what I would say. Yes, Ryan.
Kind of working off that last comment. I've got a situation where it's not so much that people are pushing back on the value, but simply saying it's sort of a no-go unless this is worth what I bought it for. And what I'm finding for comps are significantly less than that, like to the tune of 10%.
Did they massively overbuy at some point? I mean, when did they purchase?
2005.
Well, that's too bad. So,
And it's deferred maintenance on the house. That's the other kicker. So,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so there's not going to be a whole lot of people who fall into the category that Ryan's talking about right now, but people who bought late 2005, early 2006, who then didn't do a whole lot of maintenance on the house in the last 15 or so years, they're the ones who are going to be in that position. And the conversation I think I would have, and listing agents on the call, tell me if you have more to add to this or if you think I'm off base. But the conversation that I think I would have is, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, please note, values today are higher than they ever have been. And so the best cure for what ails you and your property to make up because remember, they bought in 2005, everything fell off a cliff 3 years later. They probably lost 20% of their value. We have climbed all the way back up. It is unlikely that we're going to sustain this for very much longer, which means the numbers are only going to start to come back down. And frankly, we can't figure out whether or not we'll ever see this kind of market again. And so the best way to mitigate buying high and selling low is you can't change the buy high, right? Unless you have a hot tub time machine. What you can change is mitigating the sell low, because you can at least sell as high as possible, which frankly is right now. What else on that?
Rick, wouldn't you say also that if they were going to be buying, that they would be maybe, with the interest rates as low as they are, that somehow they would be capitalizing on income, obviously it's going to cost them less now with the interest rates. So would that be a combo as well, or?
You could certainly use that. My concern there is that, the way the market is, buyers have to fight and throw
Right,
over
right.
asking price.
Gotcha.
So I'm not 100%
Yeah.
sure they're really going to see it on the tail
So
end.
with people who bought 2005, 2006, and obviously, the price is still at the highest point we've been in 20 years, still are not meeting that. The likelihood right now is that it's the highest, they're banking on it if they're going to wait, because you would say, because it's not, there's no crystal ball, obviously, right? That it's going to go higher.
It's a matter of losing less
Right. Okay.
than they
That's
might
the way to put it.
otherwise lose, right? You'll just
Okay.
lose. Yeah. Steve.
Gotcha.
With regard to having trouble pricing something or convincing a seller based on no solds, I think in this market you could also make a case using actives and under contract based on the amount of time a property is on the market. So if you have an active that's on there for 30 days, we can assume it's overpriced and make that case. And if you're looking at things under contract, is this binded in 3 days, it probably had multiple offers, went above that. Binded in 30 days, probably going to go below list price.
Yeah, great point. And so finding the data where it maybe doesn't, finding the data where it exists instead of seeking out only solds, rounding out the conversation with, the good news is that you all can do that. Like appraisers can't do that, but you can do that. You can find something that just went under agreement. You can find something that expired. You can find something to fill in some of the gaps and extrapolate information and incorporate that in the conversation. Great point. What else? What listings questions are burning a hole in your head?
Okay, here's one.
Yes.
People are waiting sometimes because they say, well, the bug, and we don't want to get sick. I don't want to have people come over to the house. And so my response is, the good news is everything is online now. So we can meet on Zoom, we can have the virtual tour, the video. And so the people that are most likely to come into your houses are those that are ready to move forward, rather than people that just want to take a look.
Yeah, we can make things as strict as possible.
Mhm.
I will go back to, and again, I'll say up front, I'm not sure this is the most politically correct conversation that I can throw at you, but I think that at some point,
Mhm.
if we keep listening to sellers say, oh, well, you know what, I'm not putting my house on the market because of COVID. Well, I think we have to start asking them the question, okay, does that mean you're never going to sell your house, right? Does that mean you're willing to wait a year or 2 years or 5 years? At some point, the writing's on the wall where what's that term? This becomes endemic, right? And it's just something everyone learns how to live with over time. I don't have a crystal ball like any of the rest of us. And so, but I think the writing's on the wall that, and I'm not saying talk to your sellers about being irresponsible or throwing caution to the wind. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, I think we have to start being the people in the industry to help people move forward, right? Like I keep saying to all of you guys, anytime anyone will listen to me, come into the office, figure out what that looks like, have a plan to come into the office, right? Because my goal is to lure you guys out of your homes and back into the office as safely and as comfortably as I can, not to put anyone in danger, but to get us back to running the businesses and using each other and the energy and the synergy and all the stuff that comes from being in the office. I think we have a collective opportunity here to do the same thing with sellers, where if sellers are still waving that flag, we get to say, you know what, trust me, I get it. And at the same time, how long will you wait? Will you wait long enough that the benefit of being a seller in today's market goes away? That would be a shame, right? I just think there has to be a balancing act for folks, and we have to be brave enough to help people over that fear, and then help them with the how. Because again, we can be as strict as possible, appointment only and pre-approval letters and whatnot. And yet the market today. Here's the other path I'll go down real quick. How many homes have we sold in the last almost 2 years, right? Let's go with 18 months. Have we sold in the last 18 months that have resulted in someone being seriously ill because someone came and showed the property, right? I don't know of any. I'm certain it's not zero, but I don't know of any in our world. There are 600 of you and 3,000 transactions, right? So is it possible that it could be a problem? Sure, but I think we have to weigh possible and probable, and I think we have to challenge people to say, when they say I don't want people to come into my house, so I'm going to wait. That's awesome. I'm curious. When was the last time you were in Stop and Shop? Right? Because there's a double standard there, right?
We can get it anywhere.
Well, that's my point, right? So if it feels safe enough to go to Stop and Shop and stand next to somebody feeling the oranges, what's the difference between that and at least there's control over, we know who came in, when they came in, how long they stayed, right? We have a little bit more control when people are coming through our house than just going to the store.
And
Yeah.
can we also have like some, tell them we'll have some protocols, like making sure everybody has a mask, not having more than like, say, 2 people plus their realtor come in, only the decision makers can come in, and having a hand sanitizer bottle standing there that for people, would that help to tell them?
Yeah, I think that going backwards to I didn't mean backwards, going back to all of the protocols that we had in place when this all first started, right? Because that's how we got through April, May, June, most of the rest of 2021 until those things started to become less necessary for most people. If there's still folks who are concerned, we have all those protocols 100% that we can put in place to help give them some comfort. Yes.
Well, I think those are kind of basics, but I think some people are worried because we've all seen the pictures of open houses. People are lining up, you only have 10 minutes to look around. And that was a concern of one couple that there'll be so many people lining up that they will just, be everywhere, and just the traffic, the amount of traffic, I think they were worried about.
But we have protocols for that too. You do not have to have crowds in your house. You make that, you have much more control over open houses right now because people do understand and they are willing to wait. And you set your guidelines and they are firm.
Oh, right, like one couple at a time, whatever. Yeah, definitely.
You know what this is? What I believe is that for any of you who have adult children, right? At some point, you move from parenting your children to coaching your children, right? And as your kids get older and they're into their teens, into their later teens, if you don't make that transition from parenting your children to coaching your children forward, right? That's when everything starts to get really combative, because now you have adult or adult-ish children who think they have all the answers, and yet you're looking to help them consider other things to broaden their ability to make good decisions. I don't see this as any different. I think that as long as we are taking the role of coaching our clients forward and being objective about, right, and here's something really important. If you yourself are timid around what's going on in the world, you have to be really careful that you're not conveying that in a conversation. Just like if you are very casual personally about what's going on in the world, you need to be really careful about conveying that in a conversation. You need to walk as much of a middle line as possible, right?
Well, what I told this particular couple is, in order for anybody to be seriously considering a home, they have to come inside.
Yep.
The online is great, talking and eliminating what doesn't work for them is wonderful, but people have to come inside and look around and get the feel of the house. So,
well, here's my thought. Why don't you do this? You want to put your house on the market? Great. Find a place that you've always wanted to go and book yourself a little weekend retreat away. Go away from Thursday until Sunday night. That's when we'll put the house on the market. We'll have all the show. It's what we did with my grandmother. My grandmother's going to be 93 years old. We didn't necessarily want people in the house with her. So we chose a 4-day period of time. I brought her to my house. Her house went on the market. They showed it. Sunday, we had 4 or 6 offers. We chose the one, and she went back home on Monday, and everything was happy. So have them take a weekend away.
Okay.
And just do it without them there, right? Because that's if people are concerned, they're concerned. I think we know enough now that even if someone who, well, I'm not gonna pedal down the path of sounding like a medical expert. However, I think we know enough now that the real danger is only when people are together. It's not necessarily just because someone was in my house, if you get my drift. I think what I would encourage as listing agents and as business professionals is that we maintain this is what, as a seller, what's best for you is to be on the market right now. And we continue to push and guide people, not annoyingly. However, I do believe aggressively to make those good decisions, because aggressive and annoying in my world are two very different things. Aggressive and rude are two different things. Aggressive and not cognizant of the world around you, two different things. I think one can be aggressive on behalf of the seller client, and I think that's what we're called upon to be right now.
It strikes me that we're talking about mindset, which we do so often. And it is, there are people who need our help. Yeah. And it is our professional responsibility and duty to figure out how to responsibly help them achieve their goals.
Here's something else, and some of you are going to hate this idea. I'll just preface it by that. If I was struggling with listing property right now, I would look around on this screen and find people who are not. Because the reality is there are people who are out there listing, right? And I might take them to lunch or take them to Zoom, whatever makes the best sense for you, and ask a couple of questions and say, hey, you know what, Dee, could you just do me a favor? I saw you put like 3 listings on last month. What are you saying to your sellers? And Dee will just tell you, well, here's the thing. It's easy to get in our heads to start thinking that, well, all of my people are COVID afraid, and so therefore all of the people are COVID afraid. And when the reality is, it's not all people, and it's not even all of your people, right? We just have to find better ways to have different conversations. And so I would look for people who are listing at a high level and ask them some questions. You know what I would even do? Some of you are going to hate this even more. if I found myself in a struggle with something like that, I would reach out and say, hey, Debbie, I saw you put a couple listings on last month. I have a seller that I would be so appreciative if you would help me talk to. What if you just asked each other for help? There is no harm or shame in being stuck someplace, as long as you're doing things to kind of move through it and move out of it. Right? And what if you just used each other? Because there are people who maybe have different things, different words that they're using, or different ideas about how to move somebody forward that could help you create success with somebody. I think John raised his hand and then D. So John, then D.
Okay, this is a little different than the topic we're currently on. So,
Okay, well
like,
then hold that for a second, because D's going to do an add-on and then we'll go back to you. Go ahead, D.
Remember the days when we actually did script practice? Isn't that what you're suggesting here?
Yeah, it's part of what
So,
I'm suggesting. Great point.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that out loud. So just practice, just get on the phone with somebody and practice.
Yeah, great point. And it's the idea of, Donna just said sometimes another voice is the solution, right? So if you've tried, have somebody else go in and try. Practice with each other and use each other. I think that's one of the, as much of a tight-knit business family as I believe we are, I think one of the ways that we can continue to expand how we work with and for each other and how we can achieve more as a team is by using each other more in that respect, right? If I see John doing something that he's really good at that I know I'm not so good at, or just look at results, right? Okay, I'm not listing, he is. I'm going to go and I'm going to ask some questions. Don't feel like that makes you inferior. Don't make it about how it feels. Make it an objective activity so that you can then learn, listen, and then either engage that person or engage some of the things that you hear to create different results. It's kind of like one-on-one masterminding and script practice all at the same time. Right? John.
So I was gonna ask, so I know you guys are talking about like all of my peoples are like either scared of COVID. My mindset kind of thing that I'm kind of dealing with is all of my people are still in college. So it's like
yeah, well, boo-hoo for you, Mendez.
I have a difficult situation that I kind of deal with, because it's like, where do I find these people whose home I'm going to be selling?
Yeah. So the answer is relatively simple, right, Marissa?
Yeah, you just got to go find them, John. I found when I got into real estate, literally nobody I knew was buying a house. They were well into debt and falling apart in their lives. So what I had to do was go out and just meet new people. I met them at open houses. I met them as rental leads. I forced myself to tell people I was a real estate agent, and I met them on the street. Like, I literally had to go and just meet new people because the people I knew weren't buying houses.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't have
Or selling them.
if you don't have a built-in database that has either the opportunity or the money at present to be clients, you just have to go and find strangers. When I first started, it wasn't because though I was quite young, I wasn't quite as young as you. It wasn't necessarily that the people I knew were in college. The people I knew didn't live here, right? I moved to Connecticut and left everybody else in New York, and I didn't know a soul here. And so I had the same issue for a different reason. It's just a matter of then you just make it about strangers. It's expireds and it's open houses. What else? Oh, you know what? One more thing. Where's John? One more thing. It's about expireds and it's about open houses, but it's also about the 5 people that the people you know, right? So it's reaching through your friends, your acquaintances, your actual sphere who maybe aren't at the point of moving into that decision-making spot right now. But who do they know? It's their parents. It's their professors. It's their whomever. So who are those 5 or 6 tight people around each of them that you could reach through, use the relationship with your sphere to get to make sure that you're the realtor of choice. So that's the other opportunity you have. I didn't want to leave that out.
So then how do I go about like kind of training them to be like lead finders, lead hunters for me?
Yeah, that's a great question. Has anyone done that really successfully that's on the call? Train your database? Because you do have to train your database, right? Who has some raving fans who they've spent some time with, who know and so what did you do to make sure that they knew what the drill was when somebody came to the table? Anna?
So yesterday, actually, I spoke with one of my friends. I post video on the Facebook that I'm offering some service, real estate, and she reached me out and she said, Anna, you know what? My brother, he's a real estate investor in New York and in California, and I want you to introduce him, and you definitely need to be in touch. And it was just simple video, and she said, oh, Anna, I can see that your career just expanding so widely and really so it was very simple, just from simple post.
Love that. Yeah, so there's some social media training that can go on. I love that. What else has someone done?
So I think the most efficient thing is to say, oh my goodness, could you hook us up on a 3-way text and introduce us that way? Because I have had so many years of people saying, oh, I always give your name to people. Well, they never show up. You've got to teach them to link you together. And that 3-way text thing works like a charm.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant, and it's the way people communicate nowadays, right? So it's easy, it's fast, it happens right there, right? If you're with them, you can simply say, oh, you know what? Do me a favor, put us both on a text right now, and you can literally wait until, okay, good, now we can move on to a different conversation, right? And then there's always Pavlov's dog, right? What do you know about Pavlov's dog? Pavlov's dog says that you reward the behavior that you're looking to have repeated. And so, you're going to need to be a little cautious around, hold on a second, respond to that.
And then really quickly, just by using the context clues, I'm assuming a raving fan is someone that's referred you business before, right?
My definition of a raving fan is someone that has referred you business or should be referring you business, right? It's someone who I'm really tight with, who I look around and say, huh, you know what? You're like the president of the PTA for our kids' school. You know everybody. I need to figure out a way to have you be referring. So it's not just people who have done it, it's people who are in your world that could or should be doing it, and then starting to love on them a little bit more so that the law of reciprocity starts to kick in. Okay, I was going to ask Debbie, yeah, she jumped off. So one thing I wanted to bring to everyone's attention on this call, right? Does anyone see Debbie on the call? No, I think she jumped off. You're going to hear more about this as the week goes by. I think I may have a specific conversation around it on Wednesday morning on the 9 a.m. But I wanted to throw it out to you guys who are on this call, and that is the idea of providing at least one. You want to find more ways to find more sellers. Provide one equity analysis a day, one a day, every day. Who are you providing an equity analysis report for? And really what that means is you're doing like a quick desktop appraisal, right? So if you all were my database and I'm looking and calling through saying, hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going? I'm just going to start at the top, and in the upper left corner is Dana. And so I'm going to make a phone call to Dana. Hey, how's it going? Happy New Year. Hey, I just wanted to check in to make sure that you've been paying attention around what's going on in the market. And I'm offering to everyone who's important to me this week, an equity update for your property. And all that takes is for you to say yes. I'll go to work and I'll shoot that to you via email. The only thing I ask is once you get it, just shoot me a text and we'll have a quick 10-minute conversation so I can download you on what the report came up with. Would that be all right? Is that a deal? Great. And then I go, and that day I'm going to do, I know she's in my database. So I know Dana, I know her house, I know her neighborhood. I know enough about the house that I can go and just do like a desktop appraisal, push something out to her, and then follow up so that we can have a conversation, right? It's another way into like a golden letter conversation that says, so Dana, your house is now worth $850. Knowing that you bought it at $710, what are your thoughts on that? Hey, I'm curious, is that a number that is interesting enough to you to be a seller? And Dana says, no, I don't think so. Great. What is that magic number? What is the
I'm
number
holding out for $1.3 million.
Well, there you go. Right. But do you see how it creates this conversation opportunity? And we're the ones who are now providing the information about the current value of someone's home, even though they haven't asked. So it's just kind of an outbound. I would finish with Dana, and then I'd go to Ryan, and I'd go to Julia, I'd go to Karen and Anna, one by one, and one a day. You're doing an equity analysis where you're typing something up, getting it out, having a conversation after the fact. Yes, Sherry Lee.
How do you balance that with the, when you actually are signing someone and you don't want to say the number of what you're putting the house on the market for, you want them to decide?
Yeah, that's a great question. And in this scenario, the tool itself, right, will be, you don't get to have a conversation where you don't get to say the number unless you actually have a listing appointment, right? So this path to getting a listing appointment kind of spills the beans on that. And that's okay, right? I would still go through the exact same process with the seller at the listing appointment and have them choose a number. And if they say, well, you sent me the thing that said $895. Okay, so I'm curious, based on the data that's on the table, do you agree with that? Is it too high? Is it too low? Where do you think you want to position the property? I would still have the same conversation. There's just one more bit of information on the table than I would normally have. But considering I wouldn't be having the conversation if I didn't go and proactively do that, I think it's worth tipping your hand a little bit to get in front of people who might be surprised. If Dana said, oh, you're $895, really? I made $170,000 in like the last 3 years. I didn't know that. And you know what? I was just having a conversation that this house is too big for me. So maybe we should talk, right? Those are the conversations that you're looking to seed, and make sure that the people in your database are recognizing that you are the one who has that data, that you're the expert, that you're the one who has the finger on the pulse of the market, that you're paying attention to the value of their home without them even calling. Those are all things that you want going on in the heads of the people in your database. Dee, bring us home because we are out of time. You are muted, my dear.
There. I was just going to say, there are ways around that conversation too, and say, this is a desktop. I need to walk through your home. I haven't been there in XYZ amount of time. And, perhaps you've done improvements, again. So there are ways around that number.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great add-on to that. In that you distinguish the fact that this is kind of from space, and then once we're in
like
communication.
what Zillow does, and it's meaningless.
Yeah, right.
Just throw that in there.
Right. Yeah, we'll call it the better than Zillow, but not necessarily exact.
Personalized Zillow.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so that's another great way around that. Shirley, does that help? Perfect. Yeah, because you don't want, just because you're doing something outbound, that's a really good point that Dee brings up. Just because you're doing something outbound, you don't want that to shortcut your entire process. You're still going to go through your same process. We're just using a number. We're using some kind of an equity analysis to bring attention to the fact that their home may be worth more than they think, to create curiosity. And then once they say yes to an actual appointment, then we go through our regular process. Even if it feels redundant, we're going to go through our regular process. Excellent, excellent point. All right, guys, that is our listing Q&A for today. I hope that was helpful. If that was helpful and you'd like to do it again, or you'd like to do something like that, but on different topics, just text or email me and let me know what kind of topics you'd like to have these Q&As on. I love the fact when we can just share ideas back and forth. So I'll be happy to put more of those on the calendar. Just let me know what you think. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Rick.